hello everyone. Welcome to our podcast. Today we have Mr. Raghav with us. He's a seasoned IT professional and he has more than 20 years of experience. Worked in several companies in India and US. Right now he's working as Chief Delivery Officer at Kensium. And I would request Raghav to give a brief introduction about himself and then so that we can proceed further.
Thanks, Rupesh. So, just as you started, I've got around close to 23 years of work experience. I began my career in the domain side, and I was working in the organizational domain area. I was the chief architect for Siemens in their organization development wing based out of Zurich for around 7 years before I returned to India way back in 2000, early 2000, I suppose. And that's when there was a lot of a frantic ERP feverish wave that was in momentum. And I had a mentor of mine who wanted to start the Oracle practice at Satyam, what's Tech Mahindra today. And that's how I joined them. And I think in the last 23 years or so, there's been no looking back. It's been a set of diverse roles. I think it's been a rank and file kind of a thing for me to reach this point of holding the mantle for the delivery program in Kensington. That's in a nutshell about me. I hold a PhD degree from IIM Bangalore. My subject was more in effect in job satisfaction. That was my research topic, and post which it's just been the domain for a few years, and now it's all about IT.
So how do you feel like being a PhD? Do you feel it was being very intellectual and difficult work over there, or is the IT more intellectually difficult work?
See, being in the domain side is much more intellectual. Um,
Okay,
IT side of it, it's just like what you bring from the domain relevant to the IT is very minimal. As a matter of fact, I think it's only 10% or 15% of what you learn in the domain that ever gets applied in the IT space. I think it's IT is a different monster altogether when you compare the domain side. But all said and done, I think organization development as a subject is very abstract. IT, when you incorporate that into IT, it makes it all the more pragmatic and realistic. That's the only difference.
got it. Yeah, I do agree. I've done my masters in from Oklahoma State University, and I remember we used to do very complex maths.
Yeah.
I had never done after that much of complex
Yeah.
maths
Yes. Yes.
in
I
my job.
agree. Yeah.
In job, I felt more skill. They wanted skill relevancy. They wanted more great communication skills, more interfacing capability, and also obviously you to be adapt to new roles. Like
That's right.
new skills sort of thing. I think that's what. But when I used to do either in India my BTech or in US, I felt the work was very intellectually demanding, and
Yeah. It
and
is.
in fact it required me to remain silent all times. You cannot speak much because your
Yeah.
brain is all the time working.
That's right.
So
I think the only one area in IT today that you can bring very close to being intellectually inspiring is machine learning.
okay, yes,
Because all of your machine learning and AI is completely based on R programming. And if you do not know R programming well and inside out, then you're not doing justice to the role.
yeah, I agree with you. And number two, I think um, like more or less it's like you said, it's implementation of the skills. It's
That's
not
right.
directly the skill.
Yeah.
You can acquire the skill as academia, but you have to implement and see the practicality of that skill.
True.
Like for example, even now when I'm doing this startup, I find when I'm trying to sell in India versus in US versus in Dubai versus in Australia, people's temperament and behavior is very different.
Oh,
And
yes.
it's the
Very
same thing.
much.
It's the same thing. We are selling same service, same thing, everything, same work our engineers will do in office. But when you're interacting with people, you'll find a lot of differences
Yeah.
in uh, the way they perceive data also, and then
Absolutely.
how the persuasion goes is very different. And so my next question is, how do you see the current trends in the e-commerce shaping the future of online businesses?
I would say the increasing use of smartphones and how applications within smartphones are driving the mobile marketplace. These are going to be the largest influential factors that would drive, or rather dictate the trends in the e-commerce business. The second factor that's just going to largely influence it is the AI part of it. Obviously, the AI automation is largely going to influence it. Even within your smartphone, probably if you're in a marketplace and your chatbot itself is going to ask you a plethora of questions, which will, I think, determine the kind of goods and services that you need, and that will actually help the application position the products in such a category that you become the impulsive buyer. Therefore, there is definitely a large segment of it that's just going to play a big role. And the next part is going to be the omni-channel retailing, and I'm not sure how significantly mature are we as far as our country is concerned. But I think consumers happen to interact with omni-channels in retailing largely. They do it through websites, social media, they do it through marketplaces, so on and so forth. That's also going to determine to a larger extent and how the e-commerce is going to position itself in the coming few years. Lastly, I would say the eco-friendly practices that need to be in place. So for e-commerce, and if you have to, if you really have to converge the rest of the factors that I've just mentioned, you really need to have a very robust ecosystem um, for the for e-com marketplace to thrive. These are going to be the general influential factors. Again, all said and done, there might be a lot of other reasons that sellers and perhaps aggregators might push into the market, which is like promoting more of green products, promoting more of what's it called as eco-friendly kind of practices, either in packaging, retailing, shipping, and aspects like that. So these will continue to remain.
Got it. And then, like, I understand you guys have a strong skill in Magneto and big commerce,
That's right.
as e-commerce platform. So, what is that? Obviously, I have not heard that much about big commerce, but I've heard a lot about Magneto. What sets them apart in the market, to become these leading e-commerce platforms?
Magento and BigCommerce, both of them differ in terms of their approach and capabilities. If you look at large enterprise-driven customers, they tend to use Magento. Big commerce is ideally meant for the SME segment, because for the SME segment, it all matters boils down to rapid deployment, and that is what actually big commerce gives you in the case of Magento, because Magento has to tie up with a backend ERP product that could either be Acumatica, that's what we deal with, or that could be Oracle's NetSuite. In either of these two spaces, and largely to some extent, I think SAP and other ERPs too, Magento is going to be time consuming as opposed to big commerce. If you really need something that is very swift, the ideal way is to move to big commerce. But
Okay.
all in all, they differ in terms of their capabilities. They differ in terms of what's actually offered to which particular segment.
Got it. And then, like, if I may ask, for when it comes to managing their development and testing life cycle, how do you ensure that you have which is the theme of our this podcast also, zero bug revolution? How do you make sure that you are making perfect deployments in the production for whosoever customer you are working for, and how do you handle your IT life cycle?
Our standard operating procedure is such that while the customer has just arrived to the UAT phase, we have our own sandboxes. These sandboxes are an exact replica of what the customer's production instances look like. So we put through these connectors, or we put through the marketplace through a rigorous amount of testing with our QA with the QA practice. We also have some of the automated tools in place. For example, we've got Selenium. In point of fact, I think they restricted the automation part of it earlier only to the product space in Kentium, but today we have actually rolled it to the commercial spaces in BigCommerce, Magento, and Acumatica too. So what you tend to see there is that 90% of the bugs are actually arrested by the time it hits the QA phase. So what really happens through the quality analytical phase is just 10% of it.
Got it. Okay.
So it's like we throttle the testing point to such an extent that by the time it actually comes down and boils down to the QA team, we just have 10% of the issues that need to be addressed.
Okay, all right. And then what is the ratio between developer and tester, or like how do you maintain the like effort ratio?
Good question. From a development standpoint, let's say that if you have, for example, if I need around 10 hours to finish a task, my dev team would probably consume around 4.5 to 5 hours to do that.
Okay.
My QA takes a major part of it because I just have to put it through, as I said earlier, we just have to put through rigorous amount of testing through the various sandboxes that we put in place. So we endorse the testing phase much more, or rather equally as we do the development phase.
So can you give me a bit of high level on the toolkit you guys use and the KPIs you use to measure your dev or test team's productivity? Like you told
Oh,
Selenium you guys use and other stuff.
okay. We have a very customer tailored set of KPIs um, for both the engineering, we call the dev team, the dev practice is called as engineering team here. So both for the engineering as well as the QA teams, what we have is a very specific and a niche set of KPIs that we've identified for both the engineering teams as well as the QA teams. And it's like where each of the individual is tied up to the task that's being addressed. So, in all practicality, what would happen is, okay, to just cite an example, it all boils down to how many hours would an engineering guy take to build a connector, deploy it in the sandbox, raise, how would I put it, replicate an ID in Acumatica, get it processed through the marketplace. All of this is a specific KPI that we tie to the individual. So ideally, this is driven by, how would I put it as, a very high rate of accuracy that needs to kick into the picture. For example, for the transition that I just cited, an ideal turnaround time would be approximately around 40 minutes or 45 minutes. We try to bring this down to something like 30 35 minutes. And if the individual is able to achieve that, we are more than certain that by the time this actually goes to the marketplace and the customer would do it much more swiftly and rather faster. Because you also need to consider that in certain cases, the payment terms or the payment modes actually kick in, and we try to avoid as little as possible in terms of the failed transactions. So the greater degree of onus is on the engineering guy to deliver, and that for us is the penultimate KPI that we leave for the resource in question.
Got it. Okay, wonderful. And then Raghav, where are your major clients based? Either in the US or India or at
Oh,
which
we
vertical?
only operate in US.
Okay.
It's like only the North American market right now.
Okay, wow. Yeah, I think that's where these, in fact, these e-commerce platforms are big in demand.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, lot of demand is there. And then, do you guys also do for any kind of a like final point crowdsource testing kind of thing? Anything which you want to see on which kind of devices, mobile platforms,
We
it's working?
we have not come to that point where we really I think we've not reached that stage of maturity where we could actually do some crowd testing for the business at large.
Okay,
But our I think our primary emphasis right now is within Cansium, is for our customers. And yes, we do have a greenfield area where we are testing as many customers as possible, but we're still not actively thought on those lines yet.
okay, got it. No, I mean, I was just wondering, like, do you have like maybe 20, 50 devices in your office, or do you take any third-party companies' help to do
Oh, from that
test it on?
standpoint, yes, we do have devices. Oh, yeah,
Okay,
from that
okay,
standpoint, yes, we do have devices because we have tied with the customers and customers have devices. All those testing devices are actually, how would I put it, as our base location is India.
got it.
So we use them here to facilitate those testing.
Got it. You just about 20, 50, 100 devices sort of thing
That's it.
through which
Yeah.
you check the variability of the app on the different platforms.
Yes. Yes.
Cloud-based environments. Do you guys use anything like Lambda test or any of those kind of uh, testing cloud-based testing environments?
Not yet. Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
Everything is basically built up in-house kind of thing.
That's it.
Okay. All right. Okay. Wonderful. And then apart from that, Raghav, like overall, when it comes to the overall maintaining high quality of the product, how do you ensure that you are able to put the message in your test and DevOps teams? All three teams are able to work in conjunction with your overall messaging because your message will be as a high level that hey guys make sure we are delivering high quality product to the client. Number one, number two, it is not having any downtime. Number three, it is not having any kind of P1 or P2 defects kind of thing, or especially a payment gateway kind of issues or bucket kind of issues.
So the philosophy that we have at an organization level that we need to bring down failure rate to a minimal, is actually something that echoes down to the lowest level because I have leaders who are representing me at various levels who carry this message. This man who's sitting with the individuals to make sure that this testing actually happens. So my leaders take this message, they work with the dev engineering teams, they work with the QA teams, they work with the solution architects, just to make sure that the value chain that actually starts from the lowest end in the engineering or the implementation consulting phase trickles down to the extent where even the QA analyst really knows what needs to be put in place. So I would say it's a practice we have excelled over the last few years, and that's where we are right now, and that's what is actually keeping us in good books.
Okay, sure. So basically now I want to know that in next 2 to 5 years, what do you think how the IT life cycle will be managed? What are the new AI tools or new efficiencies you think will come into our product life cycle?
More than the product life cycle, I think the next 2 to 5 years are largely going to be driven by uh, where AI is taking the front place, even in terms of setting up the marketplace for the customer. So there are already tools where, for example, Builder.io. So Builder.io phenomenally builds a website for the customer. And they do it from ground zero. The
Yes.
idea is, yes, it is an AI enabled tool, but then what we would like to bring to the table is 15 to 16 years of experience and expertise of actually having with the customer, fine tune on what we've delivered to the customer, and then bring the technology, and then make sure that this kind of a convergence is just going to make, I would say, e-commerce and mobile commerce and um, the marketplace per se to be much more dynamic and ever changing. And for all of that to happen, I think we are today leaning more on our expertise that we have delivered to the customers over the last 2 decades or so. Plus, we are now putting all of that expertise through machine learning just to make sure that we have a huge amount of repository that is going to help us reach the customer's hotspot as soon as possible.
Got it. Wonderful.
Yes, so I think to answer it shortly, we will be at Calcium will be I think pitching the battle against Builder.io or AI driven tools because I think ultimate customer excellence obviously has to happen from a brand point of view. It cannot happen from a technology point of view. So Calcium as a brand will have to take the position to the forefront, and AI will only have to remain as an enabler.
Got it. Yeah, I think makes sense. Even I also feel that how many new tools come or obviously they bring in new efficiency, but a human perspective always remains there, and the experience
Absolutely.
factor remains there. You cannot replace the human experience angle out there.
Yeah.
That will always be there, but obviously you can augment or increase your speed with the help of with
Precisely.
help of
Yeah.
these ones. Now, the last question is, Raghav, what is the advice you want to give to our younger audience, which is more than 150K audience, is subscribe to our channels, different social media channels. What are the things you have learned? One particular thing you learned in your career, which you think today's generation can implement in their
Oh,
lifestyle.
do not be heart stopped by one technology because technology as a mindset is constantly evolving. And today you might be on what blockchain, you might be on machine learning, AI. But a few years down the line, things are going to change. End of the day, the bedrock of all of this still remains ERP. That's you cannot wish it away. That's still going to remain forever. So I think my suggestion is just don't make sure that what you learn it as what you learn or what you master as a technology today, it's going to be the only constant. No, that's never going to be the constant. It's just going to be an enabler in the next 5, 10 years to come. Be adaptable, adapt to as many technologies as you can, but at the same time, make sure that you gain an absolute, a formidable foothold in one particular domain, and that domain is actually going to stitch your technology and your business together.
Got it. Okay, wonderful. Okay, that's all, Raghav. Thank you very, very much for your time.
Thanks, Rupesh.
And pleasure talking to you today. And we will definitely stay in touch with you for the future channels.
Thanks, Rupesh. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you, sir. Thank
Bye
you.
bye.